Pastor Peter Kelm is the mission executive in the South Wisconsin district of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, and he has been directing mission work in this district. Pastor Kelm, I'm interested, just give us an overview. What is the mission work in the district?
Yeah, in the last decade we've seen just a massive influx of immigrants from all over the world in southeastern Wisconsin. African immigrants from both French-speaking and English-speaking countries, Hispanics from Mexico, Central America, even South America, Asian immigrants. We've recently had a number of Burmese immigrants that have come into the area for the first time. So it's really an exciting time as far as immigration here in the Milwaukee area.
Wow, how has the district responded to that? The district itself, congregations of the district, what's the response been?
Yeah, we've really been blessed, especially my predecessor, Pastor Dan McMiller, who's a seasoned missionary himself, really seized on a number of opportunities to do immigrant ministry, and we've also utilized the EIIT program.
What's EIIT?
Yeah, the Ethnic Immigrant Institute of Theology.
And what does that do?
That's a training program for new immigrants to become pastors through a distance learning program through the St. Louis Seminary.
So they don't have to give up their homes and jobs and congregations. A lot of times they'll lose their congregation if they move and go to St. Louis or Fort Wayne seminaries.
A lot of our missionary pastors are bivocational, and we can't have them leaving their jobs and their families for a residential program, and so their ministries. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So that's been a great help. I think, in fact, we would have very little immigrant ministry going on without those programs, because we need pastors and we need a way to train them that keeps them in their communities.
And you're using a distance education program to do that with the EIIT.
Yeah.
Would you reflect a little bit about the difference between work on a mission field and work in a Christian country? Because the United States used to be a Christian country, and now we've seen that's been changing. There's a difference between those two, isn't there?
Yeah, there sure is. A lot of it is just your mindset. I mean, if you see your work as simply caring for the flock, and of course as pastors we want to care for the flock.
That's what pastors do, they care for a flock.
I would say, all missionaries are pastors, but not all pastors are missionaries.
Interesting.
What
do you mean?
Well, I mean that some pastors have really latched on to their calling in this culture to reach the unchurched, and to do ministry in a place like Milwaukee, that's gonna necessarily mean some cross-cultural work. And so we're just grateful for those pastors and congregations who have taken on that challenge and have a willingness to cross over to a different culture to do work.
So instead of just taking care of one group of people, they've reached over cross-culture to another. What other differences are there between pastors and missionaries?
A lot of it is probably just priorities and how you spend your time. I mean, certainly pastors have enough to do in caring for their flock that if they never stepped out of the confines of their congregation, they would be busy people. But missionary pastors prioritize reaching the lost, and they prioritize helping their congregation to reach the lost. And so I think a lot of it is just prioritization of what's important in ministry.
Well, I think isn't it also raising up new leaders who will be able to go out and start new missions in different places. Do you have any places like that?
Yeah, one of the things that we work hard at here is trying to identify that next generation of leaders, especially in our immigrant communities, because we've been blessed with some fabulous first-generation pastors, but we realize that if we're not proactive in finding and training that next generation, that the work is going to be limited. And so that's been an important part of what we try to do.
I was talking to Pastor Guy this morning, the man from Africa, from the Congo, and he was talking about he had 3 men in his congregation that he's identified, and he's been nurturing them as leaders.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Oh, it's fantastic, and God bless him for that, because it's a long process. You know, in Guy's case, what he has to do is identify men, then get them sometimes the language skills that they need in English first of all, before getting them into a pre-EIIT class and then EIIT. So it really is a long process between identifying a potential new leader pastor and having that person serve as a pastor. And so, yeah, you always have to be looking and identifying for that next generation of leaders.
And he's had a vision for 3 different places where these men are going now to start Bible studies.
Yeah. Guy is just such a missionary at heart. You know, he's here in Milwaukee. He actually has 2 congregations here in Milwaukee. His immigrant congregation, and then also another African American congregation in town. But beyond that, he travels up to Green Bay and the Fox Valley area, which is a couple hours away from here in Milwaukee, and is working with African immigrants there, particularly immigrants from Rwanda. And he's helping them, leading worship with them, and also trying to identify that next group of leaders. That's so important.
Because that's got to be a lot for him to be running all around like that.
He's a busy man.
That's why he's raising up these other leaders to go out and plant congregations.
Yep, he knows he can't do it all himself.
Yeah, well, that's hard. But that's what a missionary does, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We send a missionary to another country. We don't send that person to be there for the rest of their life and do all the work. It seems their main job is to find local people that they can raise up and put in place some process, some strategy for authorizing them for public ministry.
No, it's so important. I mean, you know, you want to be replaced, essentially, and you're always looking for that next generation of leaders. And there needs to be a structure that supports that model. And that's why we're excited about the EIIT program in particular, and the Center for Hispanic Studies, which we've also utilized.
Give us a projection. What do you see in the next 10 years in the district? Is this mission work going to grow? Is it not going to grow?
Yeah.
What's going to happen in the next 10 years?
It's interesting. The last decade in the city of Milwaukee, and Milwaukee had about as many LCMS Lutherans as any place. But what we've seen is that the number of Anglos who are worshiping in our Milwaukee congregations is steadily declining.
They move out. Or they've pass away.
Exactly, and they've aged. The white population in Milwaukee is a very elderly population, and so the future for growth in this area is in immigrant ministry. And so we're hoping to plant the seeds in a number of those communities and start the work, and expecting that God is going to bless it, and that the future will include LCMS Lutherans from many different places, and we're excited about that.
Well, that's a great vision, that this church would look like the description of heaven in Revelations. There are ethnic groups from every nation that are worshiping together in heaven, and South Wisconsin District seems to have that vision and is supporting it. We thank God for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your ministry.
Well, thank you, Bob.